Hi there, welcome in Amsterdam, capital of the Netherlands. I'm Linda, I'm a Guido certified tour guide. Since 2009 I have been living here in Amsterdam, and as I was so enthusiastic about the city, I wanted to share my enthusiasm with its visitors. And that's why I became a tour guide in 2012. Unfortunately, we cannot show you around here in Amsterdam at the moment, and that's the reason why we try to bring it to you instead. So this is where it all started around the year 1000. The first people came to live on the banks of the Amstel River, that side and on that side. And there where we see Centraal Station nowadays, there used to be an open connection with the sea. That caused a lot of floodings. So you can imagine it wasn't a very safe place to live. In 1260 they decided to build a dam. No worries, I don't want to swear, but they wanted to build a dam in the Amstel River to protect the land. It made it a bit safer, and you had to pay toll to pass the locks back in those days. And you had to pay taxes to bring in your goods into the city. Trade was about to start. Do you already understand where the name Amsterdam or Amsterdam comes from? At first the name of the city was Amsterdam. Then it changed into Amsterdam, and nowadays Amsterdam. But it still derives back from the dam being built in the Amstel River. And that's how we can explain many other city names, such as Edam, Dam in the river de E, or Rotterdam, Dam in the river de Rotte. Since we are here, isn't this a beautiful building, our Centraal Station? It dates back to the end of the 19th century. And you might have seen it already, but otherwise have a look up there. Do you see that funny clock up there? It doesn't show you the time, does it? No, it shows you the direction of the wind. And that reminds us about the maritime history of this area. Sir Kuiper was the architect. And later on I will show you another building from his hand, the famous Rijksmuseum. Amsterdam used to have a very big harbor, and in the 17th century it even used to be the biggest harbor in the world. Can you imagine? If the sailors came ashore after being for months at sea, the first area where they would come would be over here. Do you already know which area I'm talking about? Yes, it's the famous red light district. And yeah, unfortunately we cannot show you too much since we have to respect the privacy of the ladies. And we cannot walk around with you anymore here, but it's still worth a visit. So when you're here, please walk through this area. It has so much to offer. Many nice old buildings, historical buildings, and a lot of history. It's one of the oldest parts in town. Some rules though that you have to respect while walking around here is that you're not allowed to make pictures of the sex workers. It's about their privacy after all. And besides that, I once learned a very important lesson. It was from a sex worker that works here, and she told me, Linda, please, if you walk around here, tell your guests that I'm a very proud lady, that I'm proud of the work I'm doing, I'm proud of my body, and please approach me like that. So keep that in mind while walking here. So here we're standing on Dam Square, the dam that has been built in 1260 in the Amstel River. And the Amstel River at this point is quite well hidden, but it still floats underneath us through big pipelines. And behind me we see a very big, beautiful building, which we know nowadays as the Royal Palace. But when it was built in the 17th century, it was built as a city hall. And actually this building shows you the power and the wealth of the rich merchants that used to live here in the 17th century. It was not until 1800 that it became the Royal Palace. And you can imagine nowadays it's not a very pleasant place to live for a royal family. But they do use it for official matters. And when they don't use it, it's open as a museum. Where the rich and the famous used to live on the other side of the canal, the poor people used to live over here, in the former worker area, the Jordaan, or the Jordaan District. Nowadays it's a nice and cozy area with about 19,000 inhabitants. But up to the 60s there were about 100,000 people living here. Take a look at the houses, don't they look beautiful? But can you imagine that where families nowadays have an average of about 2 children here in the Netherlands, families up to the 60s of last century had up to 8 or 10 children. And people weren't living on floors like we do nowadays in Amsterdam, as most of these apartments are one-floor apartments, but people were living in rooms with their whole family. Can you imagine that on one floor you might have had 2 rooms or 3 bedrooms, and there were 8 or 10 people living on one room, and then even the attics and the basements were in use as rooms. It wasn't a nice place to live. And you can imagine there were a lot of diseases around. You can imagine this wasn't a very nice place to live, but thankfully it has been saved from the demolition hammer. And nowadays it's a beautiful and lovely place to stroll through, get lost, because you will get lost in this lovely labyrinth, but it's full with little workshops and with little restaurants and nice hidden gems. So please take a look over here in the Jordaan District. This ferry runs every 5 minutes and brings you within 5 minutes to Amsterdam North. It's a free connection and I would definitely recommend you to do this. It's a free excursion on its own. And since Corona we have to wear a face mask. Don't forget about that. It's only a stroll away to Adam Lookout, where we will have a fantastic overview over the city. If you think that the view that you just got from this harbor was as well the harbor of the 17th century, forget about it. No, these are all artificial islands which you see. And they are connected with a lot of bridges. To be honest, we have more bridges than Venice to connect all of these islands. But don't tell them it's their unique selling point. And there is a saying, God created the world, but the Dutch, they created their own country. We are now standing on the observation deck of the Amsterdam Lookout Tower. Very nice view from here, and on clear days you can even see our Schiphol airport over there. If we would sail all the way up west, we would end up in the North Sea. But before we can go to the North Sea, we have to cross the locks of IJmuiden. And because of the locks of IJmuiden and the enclosing dike all the way up north, we're not in open connection with the sea anymore. And that means that we have mostly fresh water in our city. And we're a pretty safe city because we don't have floodings anymore. After a bike ride of 7 minutes only, we arrived at the Rijksmuseum. Actually, Amsterdam is a very small city where you can reach everything very fast by foot, by bike or by public transport. But if you're not a daredevil, rather don't use your bike here in Amsterdam. But if you want to come fast to your destination and in a cheap way and a safe way, use public transport. But anyway, we are here on Museum Square, and it's called Museum Square for a reason, because it houses a lot of museums. One of them is the Van Gogh Museum, right over there in the Modern Building. And behind it you find the Museum for Modern Arts, het Stedelijk Museum. And of course a beautiful concert hall. But right behind me we find the Rijksmuseum. This beautiful building is built by the end of the 19th century. And its architect was Sir Kuipers. You might recognize him and remember him from Central Station that I showed you in the beginning. Well, Kuiper was a very Catholic man, and he was also known for the Catholic churches that he built. And a lot of people think that this building was meant as a monastery. Not true. It was right from the start the house of the night watch of famous painter Rembrandt, or the milkmaid of Johannes Vermeer. But luckily we also have Kuipers here who keeps an eye on things. Did you know that the night watch has its own emergency exit? It's right up there. It was used in the Second World War to bring the night watch to a safe place, away from the museum. Something what you really need to try while visiting the Netherlands is a typical Dutch pancake. And I will get it inside here because this is my favorite spot to get it, the carousel. This is my favorite one. It has apple on it, it has bacon, it has powdered sugar and syrup. So I did not say it would be a healthy dinner or lunch, because that's what we eat it for. We eat it for lunch or dinner, and the cold leftovers are the only ones that we eat for breakfast. But now I have to start talking and start eating, because otherwise it's cold. The rich merchants of the 17th century wanted to build themselves big canal houses. But therefore the city needed an extending, because the city was only very small up to 1600. So a city expanding with 3 canals: the Prinsesgracht, Keizersgracht and the Herengracht. And just to give you an idea of the wealth of these people, they could afford themselves tulips. You would probably think, tulips, so what? Tulips were about 2,200 euros each in the high days of the tulip mania. Can you imagine you would pay 2,200 euros for one single tulip? I love tulips, but I wait until the auction had a good day and I only pay €5 to a max of €7.50 for 50 tulips, just to give you an impression. There are 2 museums which you can visit actually to get a little bit of an idea what life was like on the Canal Belt in the 17th century. And this is my favorite one. So why is this museum my personal favorite museum? Well, it has a very nice audio guide which give you a perfect insight of the last family that used to live here. And it has a beautiful garden. There is a nice kitchen where you can sit down to have a coffee. I would say come over here and visit this beautiful Willet Holthuis museum. Yeah, and you already see all the boats passing by. I still think that this is the best way to discover the canal belt of Amsterdam. I did it so many times, but it never bores me. I still love to do it. And every time I discover new things.
So Linda, it's in, I wanted to say 88 beautiful canals in Dutch. How would I say that?
88 prachtige grachten. Or better, 88 allemachtig prachtige grachten.
Could you say that one more time, please?
88 allemachtig prachtige grachten.
Wow, thank you.
Well, as the first raindrops after a very warm sunny day here in Amsterdam are coming down, and I even hear some thunder on the background, we're closing up this episode here in Amsterdam. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a bit of an idea about Amsterdam. And we just hope that you stay safe and healthy, and we would love to welcome you back soon again here in Amsterdam. Hope to see you soon. Hi there. I hope you enjoyed our video about Amsterdam, and now it's time to answer some of your questions. Let's see, we already have questions coming in there. Yes, I have one here. Daniela Appleton from Winchester, UK. The station really is beautiful. Thank you for showing us Amsterdam. You're more than welcome. It was a pleasure to do that. Are there any sorts of historic details around the station to see when visiting? Well, basically when you enter the city via the station, you're in the middle of the historic town, of the old town. If you walk straight ahead, you will end up at Dam Square, where you see the Royal Palace, for example. Just around the corner you have the Red Light District, and I already pointed that out and told you a bit about that. Beautiful because of all the historical buildings up there, but as well the history with the girls. And then we also have around the Jordaan District, where I told you all about. So basically when you enter the city from on Centraal Station, you're in the middle of everything. So you're in the middle of the old town and the shopping street. Sorry man, I had to say that. Nigel Diaz, Miami, Florida, USA. Stations in Europe are often very grand. Why is that? Well, that's a very good question of you. Thank you for asking that. It's funny that you asked that, because it's something that I'm not really aware of, to be honest. I just really enjoy the buildings and that's it, but I'm not really aware of the fact that they're so grand. I think it has to do with the fact that when they were built, it was just a new way of traveling around. And it's a very convenient way of traveling around through the Netherlands, actually. You can reach almost any place by train as well. A lot of people do travel by train in the Netherlands. And when you enter a city, that Central Station or that station is the gateway to the city. So you want to have a nice entrance to your city. So I think that might be the answer. We have a question coming in here from Johnny Lawrence, Newark, New Jersey, USA. The canal boats look lovely. Who owns them? Is it possible to overnight in one? Well, I think you mean the small ones along the canals. Well, in those ones you cannot really overnight. And it has to do with the fact that they're just very small. They don't have a toilet on board or anything. But they are owned by the people that live in the city. Most of them, they don't have a backyard, so they use the parks to go out and to enjoy the sun, but as well they're little boats. And as soon as the sun is out, you see the canals full with those little boats actually. Let's see, Claire Glover Chicago. Oh, it's such a difficult name. I hope I pronounced it well. Illinois, USA. Oh, at least I did my best. Don't see many cars in your video. How do people get around in Amsterdam? Good question. Well, first of all, if there were a lot of cars around, then we would stop filming because it would be too noisy on the film. But in general, yeah, most of the people in Amsterdam do move around on their bikes, and such myself. But as soon as it starts to rain too much, no worries, I will take public transport. And public transport definitely is the way to get around through Amsterdam. It's very fast, it's safe, and it's not too expensive actually. So as well for you, if you come to Amsterdam, it's a good fun to explore the city by public transport. And you have to know that per household you can have only one parking permit. So when I imported my boyfriend from Utrecht, yeah, I had to say goodbye to my car because he also brought his car with him. And I basically always work in the city and don't really need my car, and he needs it every day to go to work. So yeah, by car. Let's see, it's so fun to see all of your questions coming in. Let's see which one we have now. Jason Line, San Francisco, California, USA. Do people live in the boats on the river? Well, just keep in mind that most of the waterways that we see in Amsterdam are canals. And we have only one river, which is the Amstel River. The rest is all artificially made. So do people live in boats on the river? Well, you probably mean the houseboats. Yes, people do live on them. People started to live on houseboats in the 60s. And it was in the beginning not too comfortable, but now they have all the comfort you need. Floating water, electricity, a sewer, thankfully, because that really saves the canals from being very, very dirty. And people can live there whole year round nowadays. So it's good fun if it's very warm, so they can jump in the water and to cool down. And when it's very cold, they can go ice skating when they're lucky. Yeah, so people do live in those houseboats. Yes, definitely. About 2,500 we have in the city, by the way. And some are rented out. So if you're here and you want to overnight in a very special way, well, try to get a houseboat to sleep in for a night. Good fun. What do we have here? Oliver K., Boston, Massachusetts, USA. Why were the artificial islands built and what's on them? Well, for different reasons. People started to build those artificial islands already years and years ago, about 1600 and before, just to make at first a place for shipyards to build the ships. And nowadays we still build artificial islands because the city is growing and growing. We have about 800,000 people living in Amsterdam now, a bit more actually, and we're growing up to 1 million. Well, and it's already nice and cozy at the moment, so it's getting only more nice and cozy. So with 1 million, it just doesn't fit. So we need to make more space for people to be able to live in the city and to build new houses. So it's a mixture of industries, but not so much anymore. Nowadays, it's more about making space for people to live in the city. What do we have here? Ooh, Lucy Jacobson, London, UK. You're asking, or it's easy to hire a bicycle in Amsterdam. You're a daredevil. Yeah, it's not too hard to rent a bike. For most of the hotels, you can actually rent a bike.
without any problem. And there are several places around in Amsterdam where you can rent a bike. But keep in mind, you have to be a daredevil to bike through Amsterdam. Actually, well, you might have seen it on the video. Now the wounds are getting a bit better. But I had some small wounds, and that was because I fell down with my bike. Even when you're almost like a professional by biking through the city, it can still happen that you end up in a little accident. So actually, if you really want to enjoy Amsterdam, use public transport or go walking. And that's the way to be able to enjoy the city and to enjoy the beauty of it. And as soon as you're on the bike, and I still experience it myself, you have to watch the road and you have to see what's going on and who's coming from the right and from the left. And and then it's very hard to still be able to enjoy all the beautiful historical buildings along the route. So it is easy to rent a bike, but if you want to make it comfortable for yourself, take public transport or go by foot. Let's see, where were we? Sandra Dickinson, Somerset, UK. Wow, apple, bacon and syrup on a pancake. I must try that combination. Oh yes, you have to. I can recommend it. Well, don't need to explain that anymore. Thank you for your... Tony McDonald. Glasgow, Scotland. Are the museums all open now? Yes, actually, they're all open now. Keep in mind that you have to make a reservation on forehand. But actually, all of the museums are open, and most of them are very quiet, and they're longing for you to visit them. So yes, come over and visit our beautiful museums. We have a lot of them. So then we have Rees Island, Johannesburg, South Africa. I plan on visiting Amsterdam next year. Good idea. But I'm only there for one day. Only one day? Okay, well, what are the must-sees? That's a good question. Well, that's not too easy when you're here one day. Start the day early, at least. And start with, I would say, the Rijksmuseum or Van Gogh. Just what you like more. But go there in the early morning, so it's still nice and quiet. And then make sure that you make a canal cruise, because that's the way to explore the canal belt in only 1 hour time to get a bit of more information. And if you really want to have a bit more background, I would say make a walking tour with a guide. Difficult, only one day. Well, I would say as well, experience the city. So don't just plan it all in with museums and stuff, but also enjoy it and discover it and just walk through the city and experience the city yourself in that way. Well, it will be a heavy day, but I'm pretty sure you will come back to spend a bit more time in Amsterdam. Kieran Seymour from Seattle, Washington, USA. Is everything open again and are visitors coming to Amsterdam? Yes, everything is pretty much open again. That's not really a problem, actually. Shops are open, museums are open again. You can sail the canals with a canal boat. Don't see a problem there, thankfully. And are visitors coming to Amsterdam? Yes, visitors do come to Amsterdam. And you see that it's getting more busy on the streets, but still it's more quiet than normally. So if you want to see Amsterdam more quiet than in the high days, this is definitely the time to come over, I would say. I'm happy to see that slowly but surely people are coming back to Amsterdam again. Keisha Patel from London, UK. Thank you for your question. I've been to Amsterdam but didn't manage to try a pancake. I must do that next time. Oh, Keisha, you definitely have to. You definitely have to. Well, hope to see you soon again, Keisha. Sophie Rafferty, Houston, Texas, USA. Are there any boats to use as public transport in Amsterdam? That's funny that you asked that, because you would think that that would be possible, right? With so many canals and so many waterways. But no, not really. There are hop-on, hop-off boats, but it's not for locals to use to get from one point to the other point, because it just doesn't go fast enough. And we use our bikes for everything, and that's just the fastest way to get through the city and the cheapest way. And we Dutchies like cheap things, so yeah. So no, unfortunately not. But if you want to have a bit of that idea, you can use the hop-on and hop-off canal boats, definitely. Jan Grimes, Denver, Colorado, USA. Jan, it's funny because in the Dutch, Jan, it's a very Dutch name actually. Jan Grimes. I believe Amsterdam is famous for diamonds. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct, definitely. And we have about 2 diamond factories that are still open, that are the bigger ones, Costa Diamonds and, they're not happy with me that I forgot the name, Costa Diamonds and Ghazan Diamonds. And those are 2 very big diamond factories that you can actually still visit, and you can have a little tour through it. And if you like, you can also buy some diamonds, obviously. And yes, we're quite famous for that. We had a big diamond industry. We used to have a big diamond industry that was brought in by the Jewish people that lived in Amsterdam. But yeah, I'm not really a diamond girl. What do we have here? Ian George from Kent, UK. Where is the best district to stay? Oh, that's a good question, but also a difficult one, because I think it really depends per person. There's so many sites in Amsterdam, so many different sites with their own feeling and their own, yeah. Well, I live in the Baarsjes in Amsterdam West, and I really like that because it's a upcoming area, and it's full with little local stores and little local restaurants. It's full with restaurants. But as well, the Rivierenbuurt, it's a very nice place to stay. Also, again, full with little local restaurants and big street market, the Albert Kuip market. You might have heard about that one. Obviously, the city center, as you're in the middle of the old town. But if you want to go away a little bit from all the craziness and the busy stuff, well, then come to my place. Come to Amsterdam West. I would definitely recommend that. But as well, Amsterdam North, then you have to take the ferry every day to get to the old town. It's good fun. It's only 5 minutes. So, yeah, and what else do we have? Yeah, the Jordaan District. You will get lost by coming back to your hotel. No worries, that will happen. But at the end, you will feel like a local when you finally know your way through the little streets and know to find your hotel in only one time and not walking the wrong route again. Yeah, so it really depends. It's not actually, there's not really an area where I would say don't go there. Every neighborhood in Amsterdam has its own charm, actually. What do we have here? That was the question of Ian. Thank you, Ian. Then we have Charlie Matthews. What's your favorite pancake topping? Oh, well, I think that was quite clear in my little video. I love the bacon apple pancake, and I will put always a lot of syrup on it and a lot of powdered sugar. And well, I actually not making that often a pancake myself, but I can show you that I don't have that many toppings. Oh, it's even open the drawer, but look at this. It's a bit messy, well, a bit. I got some syrup over here and I have powdered sugar. So as soon as I make pancakes, I have those toppings at home. Sorry, it's a bit messy. I just cleared up all the stuff that's inside of the camera at first, but now you see all the mess. So just put my camera back again. Okay, let's see. Oh, actually, on pancakes, I like sweet stuff. I know you also have pancakes with cheese and ham and mushrooms and stuff. I tried it once. I must admit it's pretty nice, but it's not as good as a pancake with bacon and apple. That was Charlie. William Hannah from London, UK. I'm taking my grandson to Amsterdam. He wants to see a windmill. Where can I take him? Well, just outside of Amsterdam, you have the Zaanse Schans. Zaanse Schans. Good luck with pronouncing that. But the Zaanse Schans has a lot of windmills. And yeah, it's just outside Amsterdam. You can reach it very easy by train or by bus, but the train just brings you directly there. And about 6 windmills over there that you can also visit. So you can see the inside, you can have an explanation of one of the millers. And yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful sight. And as well, if you take a bit of time, make sure that you visit the old town of Zaandijk, which is beautiful as well, just around the corner of the Zaanse Schans. Not that many people actually visit it. It's not that well known. But yeah, I can definitely recommend you to visit the old town of Zaandijk. And that was the question of William. Thank you, William. And Joan Wright, Richmond, Virginia. What are the must-see museums in Amsterdam? Pooh, that's a very difficult question. Yeah, well, there's so many of them, you know. And so many little ones. Obviously, I love the Rijksmuseum. So the Rijksmuseum is definitely a must-see. And the small museum, which is called the Rembrandt House, is beautiful. You walk through the former house of our biggest painter, our most famous painter, and you see where he made his most famous paintings. So that one definitely. Ons Lieve Heer op Zolder, our dear Lord under the attic, which tells you the story about hidden churches. And shows you a beautiful old house where you have to sneak through basically because of you have to see it. And as well, it showed you the Willet Holt House from the outside, which is beautiful as well to visit as well, just to get a little bit of an idea what a canal house looks from the inside. And yeah, there's so many small museums to visit in Amsterdam, which I can definitely recommend. Yeah, well, depends on everyone's interest, I would almost say. But these were my favorites. Then John Figures, I hope I pronounced it well, from Reno, United States. Are the houses in the red light district occupied by residents and or families? Yes, they are, obviously. And it's still a lot of windows where the girls are working. But yes, we do still have a lot of houses where it's also just a neighborhood where people are living, and it's known as a very comfortable neighborhood to live because people are watching each other. They know each other very well. And and also children are growing up there. People forget that sometimes, but children are also growing up there, and they actually describe the area as being a very nice area to live, and which is actually a very nice detail, which I figured out not that much time ago myself, is that some of the owners of the apartments that are upstairs from the where the girls are working, they need to enter through the doors where the girls are working as well, and then go upstairs to their apartment. So they have to pass by the girls. And so it's not that all people that go into the red light windows are actually our customers. Sometimes they just need to go upstairs to the apartment. Thank you, John, for your question. Burial Reno, I think this is already the last one. Seattle, Washington, USA. Other than pancakes, what other food is good to try when in Amsterdam? Yeah, that's a good question. We're not very well known for our culinary kitchen in the Netherlands, but we do have some very nice good food. I like stamppot a lot. It's just like potatoes and it's vegetables and meat put all together, being smashed. It just looks like baby food to be honest, but it tastes delicious, and especially during wintertime, we love to eat that. What else? Raw herring. It sounds a bit weird, but it's delicious. I can recommend it to you. Poffertjes, the small pancakes. Go to the local market, the Albert Kuip market, and see what they have over there. And that's actually a best place to try all of them. Well, I see that this is already the last question coming in. Thank you, Beryl, for your question, and thank you all for your questions. It was a pleasure to answer them all to you, and I hope you enjoyed watching the Q&A as well, and hope to see you soon in Amsterdam. Bye bye.